The history of the Second World War is an expansive and complex narrative that encompasses the political, economic, social, and military dynamics of the period from 1939 to 1945. It was a global conflict involving numerous nations and resulting in profound consequences that shaped the course of the 20th century. To adequately cover such a vast topic, we'll need to delve into its origins, key events, major players, and its lasting impact on the world. Origins of the war. The origins of the Second World War can be traced back to the aftermath of the First World War, which left Europe politically unstable and economically fragile. The harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles, particularly the punitive reparations imposed on Germany, sowed seeds of resentment and discontent, contributing to the rise of extremist ideologies like fascism and Nazism. Adolf Hitler's ascent to power in Germany in 1933 marked a significant turning point. His expansionist ambitions, coupled with his rearmament of Germany and aggressive foreign policy, set the stage for conflict in Europe. The appeasement policies pursued by Britain and France, aimed at avoiding another war at any cost, only emboldened Hitler further. Prelude to war. The outbreak of hostilities in 1939 can be pinpointed to Hitler's invasion of Poland on September 1st, which prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany. The invasion was preceded by the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Germany and the Soviet Union, which contained secret protocols dividing Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. The early phase of the war, often referred to as the Phony War, saw limited military action in Western Europe. However, in April 1940, Hitler launched his Blitzkrieg, lightning war strategy, swiftly conquering Denmark and Norway before turning his attention to the Low Countries and France. The fall of France in June 1940 was a stunning blow to the Allied powers and left Britain standing alone against Nazi Germany. The Axis powers and allies. The Axis powers, led by Germany, Italy, and Japan, formed a coalition seeking to expand their territories and influence. Meanwhile, the Allies, initially comprising Britain, France, and later the Soviet Union and the United States, rallied to oppose Axis aggression. One of the defining features of the war was its global scope. While Europe served as the primary theater of conflict, battles were fought across North Africa, the Mediterranean, the Pacific, and Asia. The war also witnessed the emergence of new weapons and tactics, including aerial bombardment, amphibious assaults, and the extensive use of tanks and mechanized infantry. Major campaigns and battles. Several major campaigns and battles shaped the course of the war. In North Africa, the Allied forces, under the command of figures like British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery and American General Dwight D. Eisenhower, clashed with the Axis powers led by the famed German commander Erwin Rommel, also known as the Desert Fox. In the Pacific Theater, the Japanese military launched a series of offensives aimed at expanding their empire. The surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, brought the United States into the war and marked the beginning of a brutal island-hopping campaign, with key battles such as Midway, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima. The Eastern Front and Stalingrad. The Eastern Front, where the German Wehrmacht faced off against the Soviet Red Army, witnessed some of the bloodiest battles of the war. The German invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, codenamed Operation Barbarossa, aimed to secure vital resources and eliminate the perceived threat of communism. Initially, the Germans made significant gains, but the brutal Russian winter and the resilience of Soviet forces halted their advance. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought from August 1942 to February 1943, was a turning point in the war. It marked the first major defeat of the German army and inflicted heavy casualties, both military and civilian. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad shifted the momentum on the Eastern Front and dealt a severe blow to German morale. Holocaust and genocide. One of the most horrifying aspects of the Second World War was the systematic genocide perpetrated by the Nazis against Jews, Roma, and other targeted groups. The Holocaust resulted in the extermination of 6 million Jews in concentration camps, along with millions of others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. The scale and brutality of the Holocaust shocked the world and underscored the depths of human depravity. Allied strategy and turning points. As the war progressed, the Allied powers formulated strategies aimed at defeating the Axis forces. In Europe, the Allies launched a series of offensives, including the invasion of Italy in 1943 and the D-Day landings in Normandy in June 1944, codenamed Operation Overlord. The successful liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation paved the way for the final push towards Germany. In the Pacific, the United States pursued a strategy of island hopping, bypassing heavily fortified Japanese positions and gradually moving closer to the Japanese mainland. The Battle of Midway, where the U.S. Navy dealt a decisive blow to the Japanese fleet, and the subsequent capture of strategic islands like Guadalcanal weakened Japan's ability to wage war. The endgame. By 1945, the tide of war had turned decisively in favor of the Allies. In Europe, Soviet forces launched a massive offensive on the Eastern Front, pushing deep into German territory. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the United States unleashed a devastating bombing campaign on Japan, culminating in the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Facing imminent defeat, Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945, marking the end of the war in Europe. Japan, however, initially showed no signs of surrender, despite the devastation wrought by the atomic bombs. It was only after the Soviet Union declared war and launched an invasion of Manchuria that Japan finally capitulated on September 2, 1945, following the dropping of a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki and the realization of the futility of continued resistance. Legacy and impact. The Second World War left an indelible mark on the world, reshaping political boundaries, redrawing maps, and altering the balance of power. It resulted in the deaths of an estimated 70 to 85 million people, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. The war also led to the emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, setting the stage for the Cold War. The Nuremberg trials held after the war sought to hold Nazi leaders accountable for war crimes and crimes against humanity, establishing important precedents in international law. The war also spurred efforts to promote international cooperation and prevent future conflicts, leading to the formation of institutions like the United Nations and the European Union. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe our channel.